Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Reseller Information Network. We're here as always with my guys, Cernochsconnection up first. Man, Sir Snapback, our Hapcamp director, resident vintage clothing connoisseur, stuttering like crazy. So, Cernoch, man, has his own private, I say semi-private, thrift store in his backyard practically. So, Cernoch, what's going on?
Living the dream, living the dream. Every day is a great day. Get out there, hustling. I'm upstairs in the, in my little listing area, so I got everything cool surrounding me. So, but hey, every day listing, every day shopping, hunting. You know how it goes. So make that money.
Next up, we got our master of restoration. You know, we've talked about him getting Barbie dolls right on the grinder. I mean, this guy's selling vintage dresses on our online show. Like he sells a little bit of anything. Interesting fact, my man Leroy once caddied in the PGA. Nobody knew that.
No, I didn't know that.
That's awesome.
Leroy, what's up?
What's going on, guys? Hope everybody's doing good today. Sometimes you gotta jump into things and you gotta just figure it out. Hope my internet's a little bit better today, guys. Sometimes I gotta do my show at the warehouse, and then sometimes I gotta come back home just because the internet's a little bit better. But don't let challenges mess you up. Just keep pushing forward so you can make that money to support your family.
Guys, and if you were here last week, you already know my man Tim. He's breaking out the black light. He's showing the glow. Auctions on Monday, sports cards on whatnot. This guy, I mean, of course, he's got to fuel up. So we know we got to hit that 7-11 point total, the largest one in the reselling community, Tim, over the years.
Yes, just so everybody who is keeping track of the tally mark for the 7-11 points, I'm currently sitting at 93,728 7-11 points. So shout out to I need to holler at them, man. We need to get a 7-11 sponsorship over here, man. That'd be fantastic.
We need to get a slurping machine behind here, back in the back. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, it's great to be back. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our first episode. You guys got some information that you were able to use right out the gate. And as these shows progress, we'll continue to give you guys as much information as we possibly can to help you be successful in your day-to-day operations, whether you're a full-time reseller or a part-time reseller. So I'm excited for week number 2. We got a bunch of awesome topics to talk about and a bunch of great questions to answer. Don't forget, if you guys have any questions at any point in time, just drop them in the comments of this video so that we can answer them next week. Definitely. And shout out to all my brothers who are here on the screen with me. I'm excited, man. And let's do it. Part 2, baby. Episode 2 in the books about to happen.
There we go, guys. Episode 2 for sure. Make sure you go back and rewatch episode 1 if you haven't seen it, or maybe you missed out on something like, you know, the self-proclaimed best looking guy on our channel here, Old School Flips, coming out the gate. I will tell you, man, this guy is the toy master. He discounts himself, but you know, he knows it and he collects it and he's got it and he sells it. He's selling stuff, man. I mean, this guy's out here competing with little kids. Like when the little girl gets out of the car at the yard sale, here's Jimmy like, nah, I already scooped them dolls. Sorry, baby. It's gone. But this is our man, Old School Flips, Jimmy.
Look, I'm not afraid to throw an elbow into a kid for a good toy out of the yard sale. It's going to happen. It's hard to follow up, Tim, those points, though, man. That sounds something like, is that like the points against average against the Washington Commanders there? Is that how many points? That's what it's talking about. No, thanks. Looking forward to this show. We're going to talk a little bit why I can maybe call myself somewhat of an expert, a tool that I use. I'm going to talk about that. It's an important tool to use as a reseller. It can help you with toys and glass and stuff. So it's going to be a fun show. I'm looking forward to the information these guys are going to bring, and then hopefully my information is helpful too.
All right. Well, guys, we are going to jump in. Like Tim and these guys have already said, this is episode number 2. So you already know we've got this thing broke up in segments. So we're going to jump right into the 101 with my man Cernoch.
All right.
There he is.
All right. Here we go. Hey, it's the 101, and this is like basic stuff. If you're new to eBay or you're new to reselling, this is going to help you out so much. So let me move over here because I'm gonna have some stuff over here on the screen. So listen, the best thing that if you're ever at a garage sale, thrift store, wherever, you pick up something and you want to know the value, you got your phone in your pocket. And people always say, look up the comps. Look up the comps. That's basically short for like completed listings, completed sales, or So what I like to do is if I find something out there, and if you can always run it through eBay, okay? And I'm gonna show you a few things. I just found this awesome hat. And everyone knows I, love hats. I found this awesome, okay, Green Bay Packers. Look at that, Green Bay Packers logo athletic pro line, okay, diamond hat. Okay. Now you're asking yourself, like, well, how much is this worth, Chris? Well, that's what we're gonna kind of deep dive or like just dive into and take a look at it. So I've got some slides to show y'all. So really cool. The first thing you can do is you can be like, okay, this is a Green Bay Packers, or vintage Green Bay Packers diamond hat. You can be, you don't have to be like crazy specific. You can look at what you have, and there we go. So I put Green Bay Packers diamond hat, and these are like the listings that come up or over here, the current listings that are, up right now. So you can kind of see, condition wise, photograph wise, what people are selling and what prices they're selling at. So, you search it first, you can find it, and then you can go over here and you can go to the filter. So you hit the filter. So if you see like at the very bottom there of the first screen, it'll say sort and filter. So if you hit that filter little button, okay, it'll pop this up to the side. Then you scroll all the way down, okay, because you have a lot of things you can filter through. You scroll all the way down and you can look at completed items. So COMP, completed items, that's your kind of like your comp. So completed items and sold items. And then, okay, then it brings up to what these are actually selling for. Because a lot of times, you may see something listed at a crazy high price and be like, oh my, that's worth this much. I can't believe it. I found it. But then when you go to the completed listings or the solds, you see maybe something a little bit different. And then from here, you can sort it. Okay. So you can sort, lowest, highest, ended recently, newly listed, distance, all that stuff. I like to do ended recently or highest first, just to see where, from highest to lowest, see what we're looking at. And then you can kind of get a good representation. So I started from highest to lowest. You can get a good representation of, all right, what made their hat maybe more special or different, or, maybe the pictures were better. Maybe the condition was better. Was it brand new with tags? So you can get a lot of information by just looking at other people's, listings and what they have sold. And that's basically what, if you hear someone say, well, did you comp it? Did you run the comps? This is exactly what we're talking about. So let me just bring it through you to it again. Okay. You're going to search for your item. Okay. See what's listed. Then you're going to go over here and filter it to solds. Okay. So completed items and solds. Okay. Then you will see what has sold. And usually it does it. It puts it in date order of sold. So the newest solds, it puts it in order, but then you can filter it any way you want. And then for however you filter, however you look, you can always hop in those items, see kind of like what was their condition. You can see the pictures. You can see, so you can kind of gauge, how am I going to price this hat? Now, I always like to go higher. And this is something that, if you're going to be watching us on a daily basis, these are great questions you can ask as well. But, like, hey, well, what would you price your hat? You see 100, oh, one last thing too. If you see a slash mark through like this top one, like this one and this one and this one, that means they took a best offer. So it didn't sell at 120, but they took a best offer. So they might have sold it at 100. That's the one thing with eBay we don't know. So just if you see that slash mark, in any of these, that means they took a best offer. Now this one right here sold for $80. So maybe we're around that $80 mark. Now for me, I would probably list it as at 100 and take offers. So that's kind of like, looking at this information that I just presented to you. For this hat, I'd probably list it for $100 and take a best offer. So hopefully that helped out. And that's basic. The 101 on comping. Well, if you find something, you comp it, and that's how you do it. So, yeah.
All right. Thanks, Cernoch. Yeah, guys, definitely take in this information and make sure that when you're learning to comp, I know there's a lot of things that seem easy if you've been doing it for a while, but honestly, we all started where some people are starting, and we had to learn and figure this stuff out. So that's a great tip there. Next up, we got Leroy, and he's giving us what's trending in tools.
What's going on, guys? So today I'm going to be talking about some machinist tools that always sell. The name is Starrett. This name here, this is similar what you'll see most of the boxes. They look like this. If you see a red box with some white lettering on it, the numbers will be different because it's different. They have a ton of different tools. So the wooden boxes, they'll have like black lettering. If you see those, please pick them up and at least get a comp for them, so you can have an idea of what they're worth. You don't see them often, but when you do see them, they're worth really good money. I have this here, which is a gauge and a surface gauge, and this surface gauge is a Starrett. I picked this up for like $3, and you can see the comps there, what it sold for. So you just want to really make sure you pay attention to stuff you like. That's weird. I don't really know what that is, but that means you should at least give it a shot. And if you have internet in that area, look it up or take a picture. And then next time when you go to a yard sale, you'll already know. So you might not be able to get it that time, but you might be able to the next time. You'll know. So, okay, my internet wasn't working, but you can always take a picture. So that's what I always try to do. Then I have a caliper here. This is a groove caliper. And this guy here is same thing. It's a Starrett. And I mean, the prices are pretty crazy on this one. But, again, like Cernoch said, you'll have lines through it. That means they took 20% off or whatever they took off of them. But this name in machinist stuff is very, very good to look for. There's also Brown and Sharp is another machinist name. And if you see certain bits, any weird looking metal stuff for measuring or dial indicators, just try to at least take a picture, and then next time you'll know. So yeah, you might not be able to do it that time, but you'll definitely be able to get the knowledge. And that's what's really important in reselling, is trying to get the knowledge for next time. When you do see that, you won't have to stumble. You can just buy it and you'll know, what it was worth. So I hope that helps everybody. And so thank you.
So definitely, like, there's different tools that are trending. That is a tool that is constantly trending. That micrometer, I think I said that right. Micrometer. Like, he actually showed me that one day, and I was like, "Yeah, I actually know what that is." I may not say what it is correctly, but that's what it is. So next up, we got Tim, and he's going to be taking a deep dive into who knows, because it's Tim. So who knows?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the deep dive portion of today's show. Hopefully you got your scuba gear ready. Make sure you have your snorkels. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show The Cernochs, but man, that was a great cartoon show. Okay. So today we are going to be deep diving into the world of backstamps or hallmarks. Okay. This is an important thing to kind of have in your bag when it comes to sourcing, when it comes to reselling in general. So for those of you that don't know, there are a lot of items, and this can go for glass, ceramics, porcelain, toys, electronics. Everything kind of has, I mean, there's going to be items such as glass that there's no markings on, but most items that you pick up and resell are going to have some sort of backstamp or hallmark. And what those really are identifying factors, okay? So, for example, this is a teapot right here, okay? I'm going to bring it a little bit closer so you guys can see it. All right. So this is a teapot. Now, you pick this teapot anytime I'm at a thrift store. If you ever see me live or seen a video of me outsourcing, I always pick things up and look at the bottom because generally items are going to be marked on the bottom. Okay. So there you see right there, this teapot has a backstamp. This backstamp actually reads Gibson's, Staffordshire, England. Okay. So right there, I'm given a maker name and I'm given a place in where the item was produced. So generally when we're talking about porcelain and ceramics, I tend to not pick up items that are made in China. Okay. Now, not to say that there aren't things that are made in China that are worth a lot of money, because there are, but generally I deal in vintage and antiques, and most of the vintage and antique stuff will not be made in China. It'll be made in England, United States, some Italy, Germany, all these different places. So what you want to do is you want to pay attention closely to those backstamps because those are super, super important. What they will do is they'll give you an age. They'll also help you, once you have that age, they'll also help you as far as value goes. Now, there will be some key indicators on backstamps that will help you, either gravitate towards an item or stay away from an item. So like if you're looking specifically for vintage stuff, if you see on the back stamp it says dishwasher safe, you know that it's not going to be as old as something that doesn't say dishwasher safe, because back in the day, they ain't have no dishwashers. So that's something that you can kind of, keep your eye out for. Then as you get more knowledge as far as reading and understanding backstamps, you'll see the difference in the ink color and situations like that. That will be like, okay, this one might be a little bit newer. This one might be a little bit older. So ink color is definitely something to keep your eye out for as well. And so when you find a maker, so for example, that teapot was Gibson's, you can go online, there's a ton of different resources for you online where you can type in the name of the company and then type in backstamps or hallmarks. A lot of times you'll find hallmarks more so are like with silver, whether it be on, what do you call a fork? It's called, what do you call forks, guys? Somebody in the background tell me.
Silverware.
Silverware. Thank you. There was another word I was looking for, but we'll go with silverware. So like silverware or like, silver bowls and stuff like that. Those are hallmarks, and they're a little bit more complicated. So that is something you'll learn as you advance through the world of hallmarks and backstamps. But the other thing is once you find the company, then you can research their backstamps. And generally, more times than others, you'll be able to find a chart that will give you a picture and then a date, depending upon when that backstamp represents when an item was produced. And then when you have a date, it's easier for you to put a value, and it also adds more substance to your listings and your descriptions. So it's very important to understand these backstamps. Not everything's going to have a backstamp. Not everything's going to be a detailed backstamp, especially if you're dealing with like English pottery, stoneware, earthenware, porcelain, bone china, anything like that. You may see like a registration number on there. A registration number is definitely giving you an indication that this item is particularly old, which would more than likely increase the value of the item. So for those of you that don't know, I really depend a lot on books dealing with antique and vintage glass, ceramic, porcelain, and things of that nature, because they are like the Bible when it comes to identifying. Because a lot of times on the internet, you have like a telephone game where somebody will say that something is something, and another person who's listing it sees that listing, and so they say that it's that same thing. And next thing you know, you have half of the listings saying that this is one thing, and the other half of the listings or sold items saying it's another thing. So it's definitely important to have books if you can. You can see I have just a few right here that I always rely on. You can find these books secondhand if you're lucky. A lot of the ones I bought at estate sales or yard sales. If you're at the thrift store, just take a glance at the book section. You never know, you might be able to find some really helpful books. One book that I really rely on for hallmarks, because a lot of times there might be a hallmark that you don't know the name. There might not be a name on it. It might just be an image or a logo, for lack of a better word. And that is this book right here. It is called Covell's New Dictionary of Marks. You can actually find this book on Amazon, I believe. You could probably find one at a lower price besides Amazon, but just if you really are interested in getting it, it's super, super informative. It's basically like 200 plus pages of bookmarks. And so the way that it'll help you is like, if you see like a crown, okay, so they have a whole section of bookmarks that are just images of crowns, or if there's letters or crests or shapes, those are the sort of things that'll help you identify, the maker, if it's a maker's mark, but without a name. So just being able to understand how backstamps and maker's marks work and how you can use them to your advantage when it comes to, identifying an item properly, listing an item with substance in your title and description, and most importantly, the value of an item depending upon the date and the quality in which the product was made. So that is a little bit of a deep dive. I mean, we could go hours talking about backstamps and hallmarks, but this is just something to kind of open your eyes a little bit and how to understand what a backstamp and a hallmark is and what it can do for you as a reseller. So definitely next time you're out sourcing, whether it's at a thrift store, a yard sale, or an estate sale, flea market, whatever you're doing, definitely pick that item up, flip it over, and look for a backstamp or a hallmark. And if you don't see one on the bottom, take a look throughout the whole piece. It might be hiding from you. It has happened to me on more than one occasion. And then even if you don't necessarily buy that item, like Leroy said during his segment, which I thought was super, super awesome and very important, is that, this is something you can put in your memory bank for future references, and bring it home, research that bookmark. You don't necessarily have to buy the item, and then it kind of like, propels you for the future as far as sourcing and selling. And then another thing is also if you say you're looking at teacups, you can always go into search teacups. This kind of, I'm trying to bring everything full circle here, like what Cernoch was saying. You can use that comping tool to search teacups. Find a maker that you see is selling at a really high rate. Take that seller's name, plug it into Google with the word backstamp or hallmark. Now you can go out there with that information and you already have an idea of what that bookmark, backstamp or hallmark looks like. And then that'll help you while you're sourcing as well. So that's a little bit of a deep dive into the world of bookmarks, backstamps, and hallmarks.
I've actually used some of this very advice. Tim has me flipping stuff over it at thrift stores, at yard sales. I'm like, I'm not even a glass guy. Like, what am I out here doing? I'm looking at hallmarks and bookmarks. You never know what you'll find. I actually have sold some glass recently, and in large part due to my man Tim over the years. Next up, though, we are jumping into reseller hacks, tips, and tricks with Jimmy.
What's going on? So what I'm going to talk about is actually going to relate to what everybody else has already talked about. It's going to have a lot to do with what they talked about. So like with what Tim said, let's say you find that backstamp and you've identified it, but you don't know exactly what style of glass you're holding, or what Leroy said, you found a tool, you found the right markings, but you don't know what tool this is. This is where the hack that I use a lot for toys is the Google reverse image search or Google Lens. So this is for my phone. It's called Lens on my phone. It's an app. On Apple, I believe it's within Google search. It's the Google Lens as well. So what you would do is you would click on this and you go into the Lens, and then it asks you to either pick from your gallery. Maybe you have a picture of the item already. Like Leroy said, take a picture of it while you're at the sale. You can lens it later. Or if you have the item in your hand, lens it right there. But let's say you're in a position where you don't want to lens it right there. Snap a quick picture of it. You can lens it later, selecting from your gallery. And guys, I use this for toys all the time. Maybe part of why I've become kind of a toy expert is because I lens so many toys, it's out of control. Once you've gotten in there, you can either, like I said, take a picture of it, where you can select from your gallery. In this case, I selected this toy from my gallery. I knew it was Goosebumps by the logo, but I didn't know what it was other than that. So I'm going to lens it. Once I lens this toy, what it's going to do is bring up anything within Google that has an image of that item in it. So here we go. First search is actually an eBay listing, which is awesome. So now there's an eBay listing for this Goosebumps toy right here for me to click on. Now, I don't ever go by that price that's showing on my screen right now. What I do is I click on that. Now I clicked on it. Right there is the information I need just on my screen alone. I haven't even gone into the listing yet. I can see it as a 1996 R.L. Stine Goosebumps collectible figure number 5. So I have that information, but this is where it becomes time for you to do your job. You have to do some work. You can click on visit right here, and I haven't gone any further on that, but you would click on visit right here, and at that point, it's taking you to the eBay app. What you can do from there is where it relates to what Cernoch told us. Now it's time to comp it. You have all the information you need right there that you got from this app, Google Lens app. All the information you need to do the correct comps. That's why I don't go by that price of $13. Now I'm comping it. You can just rewind this video and watch what Cernoch said about comping, and you're right there. You have all the information you need to comp that item, get the price to sell it at. And one thing I want to say about what Cernoch said is watch those auction prices, because sometimes people give stuff away on auction prices. So watch those auction prices. Don't always go by them. You maybe consider filtering to best offer or not, and get rid of the auction prices, because on some of these toys there's a lot of them out there, people are not getting what they should for these toys. But that's something we'll go further into on the 101 later on. But now you can comp it. You guys got all the information you need right there.
All right. So, guys, obviously you picked up a lot today from these episodes. Just looking at things to look at, how to comp, how to go about looking things up. Those are great tips that we have thus far. Next up, we're going to do our Q&A section. And, guys, you can participate in this. We put this section in for you, because we could talk about all kinds of stuff, and Lord knows we do. We've been doing a live show for well over a year now with the 5 of us, the Fab 5. Like, only we actually, we go to the championship. We're taking it home. Like, we're not going there. We're not calling timeout. Like, we're getting a championship. Michigan reference. If you don't know about sports ball, then Dave. We know. But guys, for us, when we look at questions and answers, we want to hear from you. We want you to drop it in the chat. We want you to hit us up on Insta. We want you to send us messages through. We would prefer you drop it in the comments of this video, so that next time we get to that thing. So we do thank you guys for watching, but we want you to be a part. So drop a comment, ask a question. It'll probably take us 2 episodes to get there, because we film on the same day we drop. So drop your question. Here's what we got for today, though. We are asking the experts today. We've got our panel of experts here with us, and we're just going to go top to bottom today, guys. So first question we got for starting with Cernoch: how do you know what to buy?
How do I know what to buy? Buy everything. No.
That's when you end up like a pile like this back here. Like, buy everything.
Exactly. Okay. So there's a lot that goes into how do I know what to buy? I mean, it's knowledge. It's been, I've been in the game. I've made the mistakes. I've made the wins. So, it's just building the repertoire of what you like to sell, what is profitable for you, and, what makes good money for you. That's kind of all that goes into it. I do a lot of vintage clothing, hats, shoes. I do a lot of retail arbitrage shoes. So I have picked up the brands over the years. What I should be picking up, what I should be looking at. So when I go into a store, I'm looking at jackets, I'm looking at shoes, I'm looking at hats, I'm doing the things that I like to sell, that I know the best and that I'm comfortable with. Now, will I go astray every once in a while and look something up like, hey, this is a cool, like vintage, cool, like thing. This might be worth something because, we've all been there, seeing other people, what they're picking up and everything like that. So I will stray and pick certain items up. So I think it's all about just building a base knowledge of, what sells and what you like to sell and what has worked good for you. Okay, so that's kind of my answer.
Leroy,
What's up, guys? So listen, this is the way that I do it. I've been doing eBay for about 20 years on and off, but and selling at flea markets for a long time as well. There's not many tools that I haven't seen. So if I haven't seen it and I'm getting it for $2 or $3, I'm grabbing it. Like there's no thought about it in my eyes. The best thing I always tell people is, what have you bought for people that you spent a lot of money on that you see at a yard sale for a quarter of what you paid for that you can flip and make money on? What you've paid for certain things, kids' toys, clothing, hats, electronics. That's always a good start. Make sure you don't spend too much. You paid $300, you're not going to go spend, $80 on it. But if it's for $20, it's worth the gamble. And like we all said before, look it up. That will give you the knowledge on it. What I do is if I've never seen it, I'm buying it, and then I'm going to look it up and learn. It might not be worth anything, but I got the knowledge out of it. So next time I'll know not to buy it. So that's usually what I use to make sure that I get the right stuff to be able to resell.
Tim.
I think the real question is, how do you know what not to buy?
Right?
Now, listen, how do I know what to buy? I listen to the Reseller Information Network, man. I mean, like, that's how I know what to buy. I mean, no, seriously, on a very serious note, listen, how do I know what to buy? I use the tools and the information, and we literally dropped today. I think this is a perfect question for today's episode. Cernoch gave you a breakdown on how to comp, okay? Jimmy gave you a great breakdown on how to use Google Lens. Leroy just gave you, I'm sitting here, my eyes reading the screen as I seen some of those numbers on those tools that Leroy just gave us. And then, I talked about the backstamps and the hallmarks. These are all things that you can use to know what to buy. So sometimes you're going to have to, I talked about this before, and Eric knew I was going to bring it up. I talked about this before on the Trash to Cash podcast. Shout out to those guys. You got to use all your senses, okay? Maybe not the taste, okay? Maybe not the taste, but you can listen to use your ears, okay? Shake something around. Does it sound like it got a broken piece in it? Or flicking a glass. Does it sound like glass? Does it sound like crystal? Okay, smelling. If something smells old, it's probably old, whether it's a old book or a T-shirt or a hat. And then, using your eyes, the more and more you touch and see these items, you can kind of tell what's new and what's old, and I feel like I'm missing one too. Eyes, ears, nose, and then the tongue, right? So I almost hit on all the senses, but all that stuff is super important. And then using the tools at your hand. You got a phone. The phone tell you everything you need to know. So, use the Google Lens. Use the comping tool on eBay. Pick up the items. Take a picture of the backstamp and then Google Lens the backstamp. And then once you Google Lens the backstamp, you use the comps. So you just kind of figure it out. It's just about going through the process of learning. You know, you have to be a sponge for education. It's easy to go onto YouTube and be like, "Oh my God, this person is buying this and they sold it for $1 million." You know, it's a bolo and it's a bread and butter and this and that. Like, I mean, all that information is good, but eventually you're gonna have to rely on yourself. And I think that's something that's super important. You know, relying on your instinct and knowing that everything that you buy is not gonna be worth $1 million. You know what I'm saying? And then eventually you figure out what to buy by figuring out what not to buy.
Jimmy.
I agree with what everybody said, but another thing is take some risks. Take some risk. Buy something that, and when I say take a risk, you're not taking a big risk, but if you've come across something that's affordable, like I buy grab bags at the thrift store full of toys, and then I open up that bag and I research everything with my Google Lens, with eBay, and I can find out. And I paid $7 for the bag full of toys, and I'm able to research all these action figures. Another great example is that in a state sale one time, I bought an entire Walmart large box full of golf head covers. I had never sold a golf head cover ever. I bought that entire box for $20. And I learned a lot about golf head covers that day. Look out for Scotty Cameron golf head covers is the main thing I learned. But taking little risks like that, to me, it's a $20 risk. And at the end of the day, you're probably not going to lose money because there's going to be something in there that you can sell that should help you get your money back. You know, go around your house looking for toys or whatever and price those too. But take that little risk of $20 on over 50 golf head covers. Come on, guys. I mean, more than likely you're going to make your money back and you're going to learn a lot. And then now going forward, you know to look for Ping. You know to look for Odyssey, golf head. And now you know what clubs to look for because while you were looking up the head covers, you found these clubs selling for a lot of money. So taking those little risks and doing research on those items that you took those little risks on can pay off big time.
No doubt. I'll just tell you my tip, and this is honestly how, for me, I figured it out. I have 7 thrift stores, and so I was doing a little thrift run. Now I hardly shop thrift stores, just to be honest, but I looked up everything. Like, I just spent time in the thrift. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go through this. And you start putting it in your memory bank, like these guys are saying. And then, you know, eventually you figure it out. But like Jimmy says, I'm also, dude, I'm willing to dive in the deep end a little bit. So there's times that I've took a chance on bulk items, and you pay for an education, essentially. Like, you pay for an education. Like, you're praying and hoping that it could be good. Yeah, I generally too. The other thing is, if you see items, and it's been mentioned here, sort the comps. I always look for the highest first, because then, like, if I run up on a big pile of teapots, like, I mean, I know Tim, he's like doing this. First thing I do is like teapots, highest. Okay, now I know what I'm looking for. That's kind of what I'm. So like that's a deal too. But honestly, there's no shortcuts when it's learning what to buy, other than the tips and tricks that you've been shown. But ultimately, you're gonna have to get an education. You're gonna have to, like, you're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some. I'll tell you, I hit more than I lose, right? Because I use the tips and tricks that we talk about, and I've been doing it for a little while. So now, honestly, I pick up weird without even confident. If it looks weird, if it looks different, if I've never seen it, I take a chance on it, because you never know. Because there is things, and we're probably going to do an episode on this later on, but these guys on this panel will tell you, don't be afraid of it if there isn't a comp. If there isn't a comp, that could be a really good thing, because that means it ain't out there. Like, nobody's got it. And if it is different, it may be super valuable. So that's what I've learned about what to buy. Now, kind of a follow-up question to that would be, what should you buy when you start? And Jimmy, you ready?
Yeah. I'm ready.
We recycled, so we're at the top.
What should you buy when you start? You know, I don't recommend actually having to go buy stuff. I mean, you've probably heard it 1,000 times, but it's the truth. Start with the stuff in your house: old toys, old shoes, old clothes, go through your garage, old tools in your garage. And here's the thing about it: list it, get it listed, and hope and get some things selling. And now you're starting to learn eBay, because at the end of the day, that's how you're really going to learn it, is from experience. So get some things listed. Now, when you are ready to go to the thrift or to yard sales to buy, start off looking for stuff that's cheap. If someone's at a yard sale and they're asking $80 for a Nintendo with games and you don't know a lot about Nintendos, maybe stay away from that for now. But they have their shoes over there for $2 a piece. Go buy some shoes and learn about some shoes and list those shoes because they were cheap. So my advice is to start off buying cheap stuff, learning. Now, because as you level up, you can start, I call it leveling up. You can start buying the more expensive stuff because you've learned a lot about it, because you have experience selling it. You have an established eBay store. But start off with the cheap stuff, guys. Do a little bit of research while you're there and just start off with affordable stuff.
Cernoch.
Jimmy took my answer. I was definitely gonna say start with stuff in your house. But here's another thing too, and kind of just piggyback off of that. Maybe sell the stuff that you know. Okay, yes. Maybe you work in an industry, or you like, maybe you like sneakers, or maybe you like horror movies or something like that. Start off with something, you don't have, what I say is, like, before you even go out and buy anything, research some items. Okay, just research some items. If you're into horror movies and you love horror and you love Halloween, start looking up those things. Just type in Halloween or horror movie and just go highest to comp it and go highest to lowest and see what's, maybe what's out there. What, like things that like maybe you're a music fanatic. Maybe you have a lot of look over my shoulder right here, vinyl records. Some of these items could be worth a lot. So if you know those things, maybe those are the things that you can gravitate towards, and you can start becoming your own expert in that field. So that's where I would kind of like start, because here's my biggest thing. If you don't really like something, selling it is going to be a lot harder. If you don't have I hear everyone saying, "Oh, I can't. Clothes don't sell." If you don't have a passion for clothing or a passion for fashion, then maybe you're not going to do the best in that area because you're not really into it. I love it. So, like, my little kid says, "Yeah, my dad works in fashion." That's what he says now. He doesn't even say my dad works in fashion. I'm like, yeah. So it's just like start off with things that you know and you like, and that you'll like selling and like telling your story to other people as well. So that's kind of my answer for that.
Tim.
The real question is, no, I'm just messing. I almost had y'all. No, listen, I think it's a combination of what all these guys are talking about already. What should you buy to start? Listen, first of all, okay, there's no wrong or right answer, because everybody's going to be a little bit different. Everybody's business model going to be a little bit different. Some people might have a little bit more cash to throw around than others. So it all really depends on your own situation. But I think what's super important is to kind of piggyback off of what Jimmy and Cernoch said is buy what you can buy. Okay? So, like, if you are in an area where there's a massive amount of, like, say you go to the thrift store and you see a lot of this all the time. Okay, you might go live in like Florida, California, Arizona, any of the Carolinas. There's going to be a ton of golf stuff, more so than there is in like Maine or Montana, or you know what I'm saying. So like you're kind of surrounded by, you understand your surroundings and what you see a lot of. A lot of people in California might see a lot of mid-century modern because it was very popular in California, during that time period. So there's probably a lot of it out there. Same thing with California pottery. So when you have something that you can get access to more times than not, I think it's important to kind of start with that sort of, items, because then you kind of are you're not necessarily niching down, but you're allowing yourself to kind of learn something in bulk, and then you have easy access to it, and then you can kind of blossom off to other things. But I think it's really important to understand your your demographic of shopping, like what you see a lot of in your area where you live and where you source, is going to influence what you start to sell, because you don't want to just go out there looking for something particularly and then you go to the thrift store 3 times in a week and you don't find it. Now you have nothing to list and nothing to sell. So you kind of have to, you're forcing yourself to learn something, even if you don't necessarily like it, or if it's a little bit more expensive. That's what you have. That's what's at your fingertips to buy and to sell. And if you can find something that you like, that's in abundance in your area, and you can find that for cheap, I mean, you're hitting a 3P right there. That's a winner over the year's dinner. So, like that would be my suggestion as to how you should, what and how you should start buying to resell for a profit online.
Leroy.
So, guys, the way I look at it is, what should you buy to start? I don't look at it that way. I look at, where are you going? Where are you going to buy the stuff to start? So if you're going to yard sales, you guys are looking up the yard sales, and they're online. You're excited. You're looking up the pictures. You want to see what's there. Start zooming in on pictures. Zoom in on them. Get your comp right before you even get in the door. You go to the estate sale. I use estatesale.net. You look at the pictures. Start to see what the pictures are showing you. Start getting comps before you even get there. Once you get a base of your area and what places are in your area, then you can say, okay, well, this guy's always expensive and I'm not going to waste my time. That's just a learning curve that you're going to have to do. Then I use another site that I like, and we will put these they'll be in the bottom so you guys can click on them. I use auctionzip.com. I've been using auctionzip.com for 20 years. That's where I go and get all my tools. I put my zip code in, and it shows me where everything is, how far I want to go. I look at the pitches. I see all the pitches that are there, and then I zoom in. I've come to the point where I can tell you what a quarter of that piece is underneath something. I already know what it is. And most of these guys on the panel are probably going to be the same way. So don't be afraid to, like we've said, look at the pitches and look at the comps before you even get there. So you're not like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have bought that. No, you see how much money you have, you see what you want to spend, and you do it that way. That's the best way for me to try to explain to you guys. That's what I would try to do, and just trying to become a better reseller.
Hey, so you forgot one to look at. There's also this Facebook group called Garage Sale Nation. If you go check that out, you'll see every major garage sale going on in the U.S. Shout out to the guys at Garage Sale Nation, Commonwealth Picker. But guys, for me, when I started, obviously things are different. And Tim said it absolutely correct. I live on an island, a literal island. And I have to travel for everything, like the thrifts, estate sales, that kind of stuff. But you need to get a idea of what you're looking for. That what Leroy had to say is fantastic advice. If you can do research ahead of the curve and get ahead of those things, it's great. I mean, obviously the idea of we're all in a different situation. Maybe you've started reselling and it's a part-time gig for you and you have a limited amount of money to get started. It doesn't take a lot, to be honest. It doesn't take a lot. You just got to be pickier when you've got less. You kind of got to dig in. Hey, what's the sell through of these things? They've talked a little bit about those things. You can look up how many are listed, how many are sold. If it's selling faster than or more than what's listed, double and triple, then that's an instant buy because you're probably going to sell that thing in a week or two. It's not going to take that long to sell it. So you kind of got to look at your environment, and like Tim was saying, you got to buy what you find. I mean, you can't buy it if you can't find it. You may have to travel. You may have to search online. There's people that source completely on online auctions and other things where you can actually research the item before you get it. I will warn you about things like that. If you can't touch it, if you can't put your hand on it, you might have a problem. It's happened to me. I've ordered stuff online And I got there and I was like, oh, I wish I'd have known that the reverse button didn't work on this piece of electronic, because that would have been a good piece of information to know before I got it. But when you're starting out, like you said, you can start in your home, go around, comp everything you got in your home. It's a good training for yourself. But like they're saying, is look at other things, look at different niches. You can use Terapeak on eBay, and you can type in toys and it'll tell you the fastest selling toys. You can type in electronics, it'll tell you the fastest selling electronics. There's things like that. We'll do a deeper dive into that later on. But hey, when you start, you got to start somewhere, right? Next up, is it good to have a death pile? Leroy?
So listen, guys, you're going to ask, is it good to have a death pile? The answer is yes. There is no secret anymore. COVID was a big thing. A lot of people got hurt because they had no death pile. They couldn't source. Everything was closed. My flea markets were closed for about 6 weeks, but I had a death pile. So I'm going to give a short answer of that. Yes.
Jimmy's going to tell you the exact opposite because he don't have one.
No, if you're full-time, it's good. You should have one. If you're a full-time reseller and you're listing daily, you should have a death pile, because when you go to list daily, you're not going to have anything if you don't have a death pile. So yes, I think if you're a full-time seller and this is your main income, then yes, you should have a death pile. If you're a part-time hobbyist, it's not necessary. You can go source and you can list everything right away. You can do that. I mean, it's fine. But full-time, yes, I think you should have one.
Cernoch. All right, well, he's got a store. What are you talking about?
He's not Sir Snackback. He's Sir Death Pile.
Is it good to have a death pile? Like Leroy said, yes, it is good. Because, COVID affected a lot of things. Things were shut down. If you had a death pile, you kept on listing like it was no other. Is it good to have a huge death pile? Maybe not, but maybe so. I don't know yet. I have a huge death pile downstairs. I have a crushing death pile. My death pile rivals a lot of people. So I don't know.
It's a death mountain. It's not a pile. It's a mountain.
I don't know if it's like mentally like a good idea to have a huge death pile like I do, because sometimes it's mentally like, oh my gosh, where do I start? So it's like maybe find a good balance in between not having a death pile and not having a crushing death mountain. Okay, so maybe you find something in between there. I would suggest maybe something like okay, say you needed to list 5 items a day for a month. 150 items. Maybe if you had 150 items in your death pile, maybe that's a good place to kind of be. Maybe 150 to 200, not 1,000 to 2,000. So, yeah. My problem is I like buying more than listing. So, yeah. So, is it good to have a death pile? Yeah.
Yeah.
What about a death scatter?
Death scatter is no as bueno. I'll tell you that much right now. Look, I don't think that there's no way to really answer this question. Is it good? I mean, yeah. I mean, there's reasons why having a death pile is good, because it allows you to source without sourcing. So I mean, there's positives and it's like life. Okay, here, I'm gonna put on my philosophy hat. Okay, my philosophy hat is on. The death pile is like life. Okay, sometimes it giveth and sometimes it taketh. All right. If you want to swim with the big fish, you might have to strap your boat to a death pile, okay? If you want to get away from the sharks trying to bite at your toes and your feet, it might be bad to have a death pile. You see here, there's no rhyme to the reason. There's no yes, there's no no. It could be good, it could be bad. you know, whatever floats your boat and finds the lost remote, as the great philosophers Outcast once said back in the ATL. Okay, but listen, I mean, I everybody's got a death pile or they don't have a death pile. You know, it can be good if the circumstances call for it, and it can be bad because it can cause clutter, it can cause disorganization, it can cause stress. You know, the thing is as long as you're attacking your the death pile should be like a constant rotation. Okay, coming in, going out, coming in, going out. As long as your death pile isn't like, you know, hitting the hydraulics too much. Okay, you don't want your death pile to be like this. You know what I'm saying? Okay, you got to, if you got to take something away, you know, because sometimes you might have something in your death pile, like it might not be worth something when you brought it home. But then 5 months later, Dr. Seuss is books are all of a sudden worth, you know, $50, and you're like, oh my god, I got Dr. Seuss underneath this pile of 1,700 North Face jackets. You know, like you just kind of gotta figure those sort of situations out. So I think the best thing is don't have a death pile, have an organized death certificate. Okay, that's my advice.
I think I understood most of that.
Death certificate organized. Got you.
You gotta have a will to your death.
Just don't die under your death pile. So then you don't have to have the certificate. But hey, I mean, I definitely agree with what's been said thus far. You know, if you look at it like, okay, if you ran a retail store, if all you had it was what's on the shelf, what happens when you sell out? Like, you know, what happens if your truck don't make it back this week to restock? Like, you ain't got no back stock. You ain't got nothing back there. So, like, for me, I think it is healthy to have one to a degree. But like you said, if it's overwhelming, if you're not taking stuff out, if it's not a constant rotation, the problem where a lot of people get into death piles, and I know I'm guilty of this as well, when you get home and you've got like the item that you're like, oh yeah, this is the one. So what do you list? You list the one. You list the one that you get in. You're like, oh, this is the one. It's the best one here. Or the other way that happens, and I know we've all fallen prey to this. What do? We list the easiest thing to list, right? Okay, hey, I've got a stack of video games that I just scan the bar and take 3 pictures and roll them out, and I'm good to go. And then I've got all this stuff that has to be cleaned, tested, you know, done all this kind of stuff. So, you know, I think it's good to have the back stock. I think it's better if you're able to get it somewhat organized. You know, ideally, if you brought stuff in, sorted it, and then, you know, started going through it, then that's probably the best way to go about it. I will tell you, I have not attained that yet in my business. I am working towards that. That is a process that I'm going through even right now. So what I'm trying to do every day is I'm trying to list, I'm trying to clean and test, and, you know, obviously ship. You got to do that if you want to stay in business. So like those are things that everything's coming in and nothing's going out. Then the problem's you know, that you're not taking care of business. You need to do that. And like Tim said, it can be a source of problems, especially if you're have a family and a wife, right? It can if it starts flowing out into the living quarters, then things get a little worse. So make sure that you take care of that and get on track with it. So here we go. Let's see. Next up, when do you upgrade to a store? We're talking eBay here, guys. When do you upgrade to a store on eBay?
What are the qualifications again? Like, what do you get for free?
For free, up to $250. Yeah, base is
yeah. So if you got a death pile, you best have a store. I mean, if we're gonna bring some correlation between these last two questions, I mean, if you got a death pile, I guess it's time to upgrade to a store. I mean, listen. I mean, it's simple math. If you're doing the numbers where you're exceeding what's for free, then you get a store. What else do you get from the store? You get the free boxes, the free coupon that I used to have these guys remind me to use every quarter, but now I'm on top of it. I'm getting ready to use my next coupon early because I'm running out of boxes. But yeah, I mean, listen, if you run past the free, then it's time to upgrade. If you're full time, you should have a store. Okay, you listen. We're gonna go. This is like makes so much sense. Okay, if you got a deaf pile, you best to have a store. Okay, if you're full time and you ain't got a store, then you might be part-time sooner than you know it because you're obviously not moving what you need to be moving to have a store because like that's just how it works. So for me, I mean, it's simple math. If you feel like you're passing the qualifications of free, then it's time to upgrade to a store. If you're full-time, then you need a store because this is full-time. You should be taking it, approaching it like you have a real store. So that would be my plan. I mean, when I went full-time, I got a store. Now, do I list 250 items a month? I mean, I don't even know. Probably sometimes I don't. But I mean, like to me, it made sense, you know, with the coupon and, you know, some of the other things that you like. I may not take advantage of everything that I use in the store, but I know that I needed it ahead of free items once I went full time.
My thought on that whole thing, guys, is the way I look at it is if you're just getting started, how much money do you already have invested? How much money are you bringing in? So you've been doing it for 2 or 3 months and you've made $1,000. Well, you got to invest some of it back in. So you're going to get, you know, of anything, you have a membership, you get a membership somewhere or a store, you're going to get more perks. So just stop being cheap, spend a couple of dollars. Get you know, don't go and get the one that's out of your league like Tim says, but you know, if the lower one looks like, you know, you might get a little higher than that and then go to the medium size. I believe in memberships. I don't have a lot of memberships, but when I first got into eBay, I didn't play. I had to wait, you know, the couple months when you need to wait, and I've had this account for over 10 years. But you know, I just got it. I knew what I was getting myself into. I wanted to resell stuff. I wanted that little bit of security, so I just went and I got. I forgot which level the stores are, but I got my store pretty early.
See, I didn't know we were allowed to use analogies when we were answering these questions, so I got a couple now. Like an eBay store is like 7-Eleven points, right? Like if you're going to 7-Eleven every day, you might as well sign up and start getting them points, right? So
Right.
if you're listing every day multiple items, you might as well get a store and get those. Or for me, in my case, like a buffet at the casino, sign up for the casino's card so you get the free buffet. Joking aside though, like there's math you can do. Like, so the basic store or the first store, what's the first store called? It's called a starter store.
Starter store, yeah.
$5 a month, but it's the same amount of listings as you get from eBay anyways. You just get the benefits of like the coupon and stuff like that. So the real store is the first one is like $21.95 a month or something like that if you've signed up for the year or whatever. And the math on that is at right around 325 listings. When you get to 325 listings and you're paying the insertion fees on everything over 250, the math just equals to go get that store. So there's math you can do if you want to just know math-wise when it makes sense to get that storage right about 325. And the thing to consider is if you listed something on Monday on the second day of the month and it sells on the 5th day of the month, that still counts as an insertion. Just because it's not there when the month rolls because you sold it right away still counts. So you got to start looking at how many you have listed and how many you've sold in the last month and then come up with that. And you'll start seeing those insertion fees. You'll start seeing that 30-cent fee every time you list something. Mm-hmm. You want to start adding that up. And when it makes sense to get that store, because there's benefits with the store, you get the coupon to get some free supplies. Is this still true that you can't run a sale? Like you can't run a percentage off sale without a store, right?
No, you can't.
So there's little benefits like that. You can run sales and send coupons and stuff like that, and you have to have a store to do that. So there's little things like that, and then you can make your little storefront. But does it really? The main question why I feel like this is asked is it going to help my sales? it will help your sales because you're listing more and because you're running sales. But other than that, it's not going to help your sales just because you have a store. Like, oh, you have a store, eBay is going to give you more, put your items out there for more people to see. No, that's not the case. It's just because now you're listing more and you're doing stuff like running sales and sending coupons that can help your sales. That's my answer.
When you should upgrade your store, man, everyone said like really good answers. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's basically if you're serious or not. If you're serious about reselling, it's like get a store. If you're like, I might list this item this week and maybe an item next week, then no. But if you're serious about getting into the reselling and you have a lot to resell, go for it. You know, what's the worst that can happen? You make money by spending a little bit of money on an eBay store subscription. You know, final value fees are less. You get the coupon for free supplies. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into, getting an eBay, having an eBay store. So, I mean, I think they're all like really good things. You just got to ask yourself, am I going to list to where I need an eBay store? And if the answer is yes, then get one. It's a no-brainer.
I always think about like subscriptions, like how many of you guys have subscriptions of things that you don't even use? And, I know for me, if you're not careful, you get locked into a subscription you're not sure about or whatever. But just like these guys have said, I mean, if you're going to use it, yeah, go for it. If you're just doing it because you think it, so oftentimes in everything, right? Like we always have a reason as to why we're not going to the next level. You think about anything in life, like, oh, well, if I had this, then I'd be, further along. Like I know for us that do YouTube, when I first started, I was like, oh, got to get proper lighting. I need a better camera. I need, like you start thinking about all those things, but if you're not careful, you put the cart before the horse. Dude, if you're day one, if you're just coming into this thing, like don't get a store. If you're saying, hey, I'm going to give this thing a solid shot, get a store. And then do the math. Jimmy laid it out perfectly. Do the math.
And I just wanted to clear up on that. That's the basic store. So the starter store is $5 a month, but you're really talking about a store at the basic store, the $22 a month. I just wanted to clear that up. That's when you really start talking about a store.
So you think about it like if you sell one $30 item that month, you can say, hey, I'm putting that money to my store, and the store is paid for. It's taken care of. You're getting a coupon. I'm not sure, what is it, a $20 coupon every quarter for the basic store? But like guys, it really depends on what you want to do. Are you like they said, are you going to serious? Are you want to get into reselling? Maybe even at the part-time level, $20 a month, dude. I mean, what is that? 2 Starbucks? Like you're already there. 2 adult Happy Meals. Like, I would have you there on that. Next,
they have adult Happy Meals.
Yeah, dude. Hey, adult Happy Meals actually are in play as of this weekend?
What?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen it? It's actually a bolo because the toys in them sell for about $10 a piece.
Yeah, well, right now they are, but they ain't.
Right now they're fixing to get tanked though because
it's not. Yeah, it's a collab with Cactus Plant Flea Market.
Yeah.
So what do I get in a Happy Meal?
You get a toy, and like I think the box is a little bit better of an upgrade, and then you can get a Big Mac. I think the go-to Big Mac, fries, drink, toy,
and a toy.
Yeah.
How much does that cost in comparison to a Big Mac meal? Not $10.
Yeah.
Nah, look, listen. Let me tell y'all something. Okay. You guys want an adult Happy Meal? This is an adult Happy Meal. Okay. You get a hot and spicy McChicken. Okay. A McDouble with no pickles and add Big Mac sauce. A 4-piece nugget. A small fry, and a large soda. That's like $7. And you get all that food.
Hey,
instead of paying $10 for a Big Mac, fries, and a soda. Nah, Jack.
Are you just going to win?
I don't need the toy. I need the Big Mac sauce with the no pickles. That's my toy.
Right.
Tim,
hey, so,
proof that heroes come in all shapes.
Hey, I will tell you this, man. So I've seen American Arbitrage and Lady Arbitrage, got their Big Mac meals last night. Sold the 2 toys for $20 plus shipping. Same day. Big Mac's meals paid for. But it is McDonald's.
Well, yeah,
so,
I guess that's we'll see how long that lasts for. But yeah, I'm not mad at that. I guess you basically got free food.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that. That's a good. You know what?
Or I mean, like honestly, if you're a price line negotiator, you might be able to get that back door. Hey, how much for the box of toys you got sitting back there? You know,
I seen somebody on TikTok try to do that. He tried to get a lady $10, and the lady was like, "Nah, we can't do that."
Kick rocks. Like, you're done.
But wait, before we move on, can we two things? First thing, can we all agree that Big Mac is an overrated sandwich?
Yeah.
I like a Big Mac.
Little
Yeah, but
little lettuce.
It's more bread than it is meat, though.
Yeah.
I'm actually a fan. Well, out here in the Carolinas, we got a little thing called Cookout, and Cookout is cheap and good.
and the second thing is I gotta give a big shout out to Jimmy and his other podcast with Mr. Bill Ken. I just saw that thumbnail. It is absolutely classic. Classic. Make sure you guys check out Jimmy's podcast. I'm sure there'll be a link in the description for that. But that's a great thumbnail.
We're actually a proud sponsor of the Reseller Clickbait podcast right now.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We were put in that in place without permission, so we will be filing a Vero later on. Man, I told Ken today, I said we'll be sending some stickers and maybe a Sharpie or something, to help sponsor that podcast. So yeah, do go check that out for real. Next question. When do you know to go full time?
When you got bills to pay.
I can look at this question. Here's what I can say, and I'll say this gingerly. I think a lot of people rush into going full time that don't have any business going full time into reselling, and that's brutal honesty. You got to have ducks lined up in a row. You got to think about health insurance. You got to think about your family. You got to think about like where you are at, because it's lifestyle design. It looks great. Hey, I'm gonna do reselling. Well, guess what? There is no check that comes every 2 weeks that has the same. All right, it varies. You're buying, you're selling, you're doing all this thing. So you have to be. My thing is when did you know to go full time? Well, I was very, very confident. I had already planned it out when I was going to go full time because I had everything lined up first. Financially, maybe not mentally, but financially, yes. And I got to start full time a couple of months early than I had initially planned, but it all worked out in the end. So I would say do not rush to go full time because it can have adverse effects on just kind of like your financials and maybe, other areas of your life. I'll end it right there. So, yeah.
For me, it was, I'm assuming that this is a personal question, right? This isn't like an advice question. Like, when should you go full time? This is about me. When did I know when to go full time?
Yeah.
Okay. I knew when to go full time because, I basically was like, I had hit the wall at work. I had never wanted to work for other people. I've always tried to work for myself. I've done every job you could think of in the books. And I had just hit the wall mentally, physically, and I was reselling and I said to myself, okay, I started crunching the numbers. That's what it comes down to. We talked there's a lot of math going on in this episode. I know as a resellers, y'all all got at least one TI-83 laying around. Make sure you pull out that TI-83 for this episode because there's a lot of math going on. Okay, I crunched the numbers. I did a lot of number crunching. I don't know how many of y'all are old enough to know about number munchers. It was a game back in the day on the computer that you would play in school. So I did a lot of number crunching and a lot of number munching. All right. And I figured out, like I sat down and said, okay, I basically tried to live off of full-time reselling and putting in the full-time reselling work before I actually, for 2 months before I actually decided I was going to do it. And my boss at the time, God bless his soul, shout out to Sebastian over at Primrose in here in DC. He told me, he said, look, man, he said, because he owns his own restaurant, he owns his own natural. He's part of a ownership of a restaurant and a natural wine company. And he told me, he said, look, man, he said, you never gonna know if you don't do it. Like I'm fortunate enough to where I have enough skills to fall back into a job if I ever needed to. Thank God, I'm not gonna have to do that. But if I had to, I could. So, like he basically told me, he's like, look, man, you out here basically, you coming in here to the restaurant, you're doing 2 YouTube channels, reselling full time. You're working at the restaurant basically full time. You're doing the social media content for the restaurant. Like, he's like, man, he just basically pushed me out the door and was like, man, I think it's time you need to just take that step. And, I think the big thing too is you have to have that conversation with your family. If you have family that you're, that's a conversation you need to have with the family, because it's not just something that you do. It's something that affects everybody that you live with, the people that you love. It ain't easy. It's not for everybody. So, you got to be ready for it financially, mentally, emotionally, because it is an absolute roller coaster. And, people who work who do reselling part-time. And I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions, especially from, people that you may see on YouTube and stuff like that. Like, doing part-time is so much easier than full-time. I know people think that when you go full-time, you're going to be killing it. Like, man, I was doing this part-time. Wait till I go full-time. Man, you done got it all messed up. Because when you're part-time, you get that income. That money that you're getting in from your job is basically fueling your full-time reselling when you're part-time. But when you don't have that extra income coming in, everything that you do is based around your reselling business. That means your cost of business and your cost of living all come from reselling. So when you see these people who tell you, oh man, I'm making this amount of money doing this part-time. Yeah, because you ain't got to pay everything else for the full-time income from reselling. So, it's about being prepared. If you're not prepared for the worst, you look up Murphy's Law, okay? Live a little Murphy's Law for a little while before you go full-time. That's when you know. If you can survive that initial go, and it makes sense financially, and it works with your family, then that's when I knew it was time to rock and roll. And I ain't looked back since. Here we are now, telling other people how to do it.
There you go. Leroy.
The way I look at it is research. I've been reselling for a long time, on and off, like full-time, part-time. And the way that I look at it is, your area handle you to do it full-time? Are there places in your area that if you went full-time, yeah, you can thrift part-time in certain places, but if you go full-time, can you find stuff once a week, 3 times a week? That's very important. Putting stuff aside. I don't also do eBay. I also do flea markets as well. A lot of these guys do other platforms. I do actually a live selling, which would be a flea market. And I made sure when I moved to the South, okay, how many flea markets are there around me? Which ones are good? Do they have weekend? Didn't know there was such thing called as weekday flea markets, but there's like 9 of them down here. It's crazy. So looked into that, like, oh wow, I can actually sell at the flea market. So if my eBay gets shut down, can I sell somewhere else to still support my family and do what I need to do? And those are things that you have to look at. Do I have another outlet to be able to get rid of this stuff? If I have a death pile and I need $1,000 tomorrow, can I go to a flea market within 4 days and make $800? You have to do your research. You have to pay attention to your surroundings. To me, that's a big thing.
So for me, it kind of went like this. Like, this is the personal answer. Like, hey, honey, Yeah. I just told the boss off. Yeah, I told him what's up. Yeah, I did in the office. Yeah, right in front of everybody. Yeah. Oh no, I don't have a job anymore. No, not at all. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna do eBay full time now. All right. So that's how it went down. Now, why was I able to do that? Because I was honest with myself on how I handled my eBay part time. The first thing, my first rule was, if I can do eBay part time and not spend any of that money that I made on eBay and just save it all, that was the first indication that I can do this, because I wasn't spending any of that money. I was able to save it up because I wanted to go full time. So I was honest with myself about that I'm not spending any of that money, that I had the work ethic. If you don't have the work ethic, you got to be honest with yourself, because if you don't have the work ethic, you're not going to make it. That's all there is to it. We all know that. If you don't have a good work ethic, you're not going to be able to make a full-time income as a reseller. So you got to be honest with, and it's about being honest with yourself. I say that so many times. Like, if you, I got a work ethic, but you don't really have it, you're gonna struggle. Like, if you're part-time and you have 500 items in your death pile and you have 50 listed, you might not want to go full-time, because you're not putting the time on the listing. You're putting time in the sourcing, which we all do, but you're not putting the time in the listing and cleaning and testing and stuff. So build up some money. Make sure you're not spending it. Have some capital built up, have some money in the bank. If you're part-time and you're spending that money as soon as you get it in, you're not ready to go full-time at all. You're not even close. So those are the things that I asked myself, and it made it doable, because I knew I wasn't spending that money right away, and I had the work ethic, and it's been great ever since.
All right. So for me, about going full time, honestly, COVID kind of pushed my hand with that, because some of the other things I was doing were gone away. At the time, I had a Subway franchise for a little while, and got flooded out in a hurricane, and then started doing other things, all kinds of side hustles, gig work, that kind of thing. And honestly, I fell into it, to be honest. I fell into the idea, and I had all kinds of crazy buys that came in, and then the money was there. That being said, I'm still not complete, even though I'm a full-time reseller. That is not my only income that comes in. I actually have a couple residual incomes that come into me on a monthly basis. So that was why I was able to make the transition. It was said already, you got to do the math, whatever you say. You got to do it. And what you need to do is you need to reverse engineer that thing. You need to say, okay, I need this amount of money to take care of everything I need to and live the way I want to. And then you take that amount of money. How many items would I have to sell in order to make that amount of money every month? And then, further calculation is how many items can you sell? So until you can get to a point where in your part-time that you're pretty near close to that, I would, pump the brakes, because the honest reality of it all, and we're all full time, and we know what it is. If you're not driven, if you're not able to be self-motivated to a degree, then man, I mean, there's days where you don't want to list, and there ain't no boss saying, "Hey, bro, you got to list. You better list."
Right.
We actually try to hold each other accountable to a degree. And it's always something that we struggle with. Jimmy is probably, out of all of us, he probably could list the most consistently out of any of us. But, there's times where life happens, and you've got a week that you can't. So like, if you're doing something else, yeah, it's great to not have to ask the boss, I got to take off a week. But when you take a week off and you're like us, for the most part, I think Jimmy has some help now, but me, Cernoch, Tim, Leroy, one-man bands. We're one-man bands. So when we're off, there ain't nothing happening. And unless you've got consistent help to be able to help you along the way, if you're thinking that, hey, I'm going to double my output because I'm like, it's probably not going to happen, to be honest. It's one of those things you might be where you're at before or a little bit better, but you gotta be motivated. You got to do the math. You got to make sure it makes sense for you. And then know that, hey, you're working at that point, you're working with no safety net, because we know these platforms have slowdowns. There's times where you may hit a drought. Like we've all had it. I've had a few days, not many, but I've had a few days where you get the big goose egg sitting up there on your sales. And then you're like, oh boy, you know, you get a few low sales days. Hey, it's a test of your mettle.
I know a guy that got a $6 payout. Recently.
Yeah, recent, very recent, huh? But guys, so like I would just tell you, like if you're thinking about going full time, like think it long and hard and make sure that everybody's in agreement. The other thing I would just tell you, this is the marital counseling point of the show. If you have a spouse, please consult with her. Unlike Jimmy's advice, his wife really loves them, because most wives, you might be walking around with your hat a little higher in the lump that's setting up there. But hey, double check, man. Make sure everybody's on board with you, because yeah, it's different. So, all right. Well, that wraps up this portion of the show. We do appreciate you guys for coming and hanging out with us. You can always find these guys via their YouTube channels that are out here and social media. Here at the Reseller Information Network, we also run one other show, Listing and Loafing, which is every Tuesday at 9:30 to somewhere around 2 o'clock. We're usually hanging in there. We're working, we're hanging out, we're listing, we're answering questions, trying to help out each other, doing a little show and tell, all kinds of other fun stuff. You can hear all the Timisms that come up during our conversation, and you never know what we'll be talking about in there. But come and check that out. Make sure you drop your questions in the comments down below. Hey, just leave us a comment. Hey, I like this. I anything. We're open. We love the feedback. So check us out. You guys got any closing comments?
I don't think you guys had. I learned a lot listening to you guys, man. I learned more than I thought. I mean, than I taught. That's for sure.
Yeah. Hey, there's always learning to be had. That's the one thing about always moving forward as a reseller. You can always learn new things from different people. And, that's the one thing, you never want to be like, hey, don't worry, I know all this stuff. No, you're always learning from someone else. So that's very, very important.
The way I look at it is every time I get to watch the show, I get to learn, I get to teach you guys, and I get to learn new words from Tim. I mean, that's the most amazing part. Is you didn't even know that word existed. I'm 47 years old.
We'll let Tim close us out because he says the Reseller Information Network better than all of us.
All right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank each and every one of you guys for watching us. As always, we would not be able to do this if it wasn't for the viewers. It is absolutely amazing that we are able to, be able to give back to this community and help in so many different forms and fashions. I think it's just amazing that you get, literally we're 5 completely different people, but absolutely the same in a million ways. So I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to share this time and this screen with these fine young men, Cernoch, Leroy, Jimmy, and Eric. And thank you guys for tuning in to the Reseller Information Network. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the thumbs up, tell a friend to tell a friend about HAR, High, Hen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. See you next week.
Later.